获得的价值一定是小于他创造的价值。
所以你是不得不去使用。
数字劳动者有没有被剥削？这个是我们西马这边小组的第二次委员。然后因为第一次咱们读的是历史对历史，相当于是偏重早期经典西马的，然后所以第二部分是数字劳动者他们，因为这个东西是我当时的一个就是一个总写的这个，然后所以可能对这一方面有一个相对清楚的一个了解，然后就相当于是借这个题把大家引到这个刚才看这一块。
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sonia. I'm a graduate student in the third year of school. The topic of my report tonight is how to understand digital labor on social media based on research on Facebook in digital labor and economics. I'd like to share the following content with you. First, I will talk about my understanding of the content of Brooks' work and why I chose the content of Chapter 11 as the research object. Second, I will sort out Brooks' reference theories. And third, I will discuss my thoughts on the content of Chapter 11. The preface mentions that in the research on contemporary digital economy and digital culture, Western scholars have a serious lack of research on labor. Therefore, Brooks hopes to use Marxist principles to analyze contemporary digital labor. Chapter 6 to 11 of this book introduce various types of digital labor and the exploitative relationships with them. We might as well start with basic concepts. There are two important supporting points in Brooks' theory. One is digital labor and the other is the audience commodity theory. In fact, digital labor has been studied as a new form of labor by scholars since 2000. Although Western scholars have different theoretical approaches, they basically agree on one fact. In the era of digital capitalism, the form of human labor has changed. The traditional division between labor time and leisure time has been subverted, and users' activities on the internet, especially on social platforms, are a form of labor that creates value. However, this labor is recreational and enjoyable, and some scholars even make it play labor. Brooks inherited this theory systematically expounded the digital labor of users on the internet social platforms, and combined with the audience commodity theory. He believes that it is the user's digital labor that creates an audience commodity or data commodity that is unconditionally occupied by platform capitalists. The concept of audience commodity was first proposed in 1977. Its specific meaning is the time people spend watching TV program is a kind of labor time that creates value. And the audience watching TV program is sold as an audience commodity to advertisers. The media obtains huge profits, while the audience is exploited. Brooks believes that this concept also applies to the exploitation of users by internet social platforms. He further develops the concept of audience commodity into internet prosumer commodity. That is, users on the internet are no longer passive program viewers, but active creators of content. They are both consumers and producers of basic commodities while carrying out consumption activities. And I only chose Chapter 11 of this book as the research object because the thesis of digital labor introduced in Chapter 6 to 10 basically belong to technical capitalism from production relations, from the slave labor in the African mining industry to the worker aristocracy of people. These labor relations are relatively easy to understand, relying on traditional Marxist theory. So what attracts me more is Chapter 11, the prosumer labor of internet users. When I was reading, my intuition told me that This is not labor in conventional sense of the language. Even if we admit that users produce a large amount of data and are occupied by platforms, usually do not regard this as labor. Brooks believes that in the digital age, human labor power is being exploited in methods. With innovation and communication technology, enterprises benefiting financially, while workers suffer negative physical and mental impacts. It is a component of total labor force necessary for expense, use, and application of digital media. Then, many behaviors in people's digital lives, in fact, constitute digital labor. Therefore, I want to explore the author's reason studying this unconventional type of digital labor, and in what sense the author understands digital labor. This table is the core content of chapter 11, involving the social relations with internet platforms for capitalists and platform users or consumers. What is particularly special is that the large amount of data generated by users in internet platforms is defined as labor products by groups, and the so-called labor is a play labor that combines the form of play and the sense of labor. Moreover, users will actually be socially processed. That is self-restraint in the so-called labor process. In the end, these labor products are used by platforms as the basis of profits, but the users do not get any benefit. After reading, I summarize the premise of Brooks' argument as follows. The business model used by social platforms is based on targeted advertising, so that users' data can be legally converted into commodity. Then the process of creating this data must be a kind of labor that creates value. This means that this type of internet use is productive consumption, which creates value and sells commodities. From this, Brooks discovered the labor force, labor tool, and labor object of in the process of consumption. Users participate in the cultural process of creation. That is, use these commodities in daily life to create the meaning of various commodities. Next, I will sort of purchase Brooks' analytical framework. First, social media and digital work. Brooks believes that information is a work process in which cognitive work creates ideas, communicative work creates meanings, and collaborative work jointly creates information products that share and co-create meanings. On Facebook, users post information about their life and objectify subjective knowledge, which is the cognitive work stage. Moreover, users can communicate with others through the platform. In this process, knowledge is objective, which means that users will integrate other people's information and to a certain extent change their thinking process. In addition, repeated exchanges to users will build or maintain friendships and interpersonal relationships, which involve a sense of common being. This is a collaborative space where people create things online, either social relationships involving a sense of community, or social relationships that can collaboratively create. Second, social media digital labor. Folks analyze the so-called labor alienation of users on Facebook platform based on Marxist theory of alienating labor. It means that user labor has been alienated, which is caused by social coercion. Its reason is that in the information society, digital media has become important for people to use their communicative capability, and labor power is to a certain extent communicative power. And Facebook controls a large number of users and their personal data. So if people do not use Facebook, the lives may involve fewer meaningful actions. Second is alienation of labor force. On the platform, capital will control the dissemination of biology. Users can't own or control the platform, and there is a class relationship between stockholders and non-owner users. Specifically, the hierarchy of Facebook users also politicized the form because they do not have decision-making power to influence rules and designs, such as the content of terms of use and privacy policy, private settings, the use of user data sold to advertisers, their understanding, and so on. Again, it is the alienation of labor products. Facebook and the human brain are used as tools to document human experience by different public or private, providing data representing personal and social experience to a specific social group, as this value should create meeting users' needs and making part of their lives own, educated, and cooperative with others. By setting up for Facebook, users agree to the privacy policy and terms of use. This document proves that users agree that all their shared experience used by Facebook for economic purpose, indicating that these experiences are for the purpose of capital accumulation. However, monetary profits are slowly controlled by platforms. Finally, it is the alienation of human beings. The emotional structure of social media platforms is composed by users' psychological value, awareness of using the platform and emotions. The objective condition of social media, such as market condition, monopoly, ownership structure, data processing, and privacy policies, and so on. We combine the experience and emotional structure of specific. And one content that I personally very interested in Brooks' understanding of commodity, fetishism, and digital labor. It believes that in the digital labor world of social media, the fetishism characteristics of commodities present an inverse form. We can call it the inverse fetish character of social media content. The characteristics of Facebook data commodities are hidden behind the social use value of Facebook. The collective expression of Facebook inverse fetishism in the following assertion. Facebook doesn't exploit me because I connect with other users and benefit from it. The social relations among Facebook advertisers and users are not immediately sent to users. They mainly speak the relationships between themselves and other users. In addition, I am also interested in the concept of play labor. In the traditional sense, play knowledge expressed in the form of enjoyment and entertainment is a part of capitalist spare time. And spare time is unproductive and separated from labor. Marxist once connects Marx's theory of surplus labor with Law's theory of human drug structure. It points out behind the reality principle, there is a basic fact, which is that this means that the struggle for expenses takes place in a relative world, and human needs, if not restricted, moderated, and delayed, cannot be satisfied. In other words, any possible satisfaction must be achieved through work, through rather painful labor to obtain the means to satisfy it. Due to the persistence of work, pleasure is high and pain prevails. Table on the right is based on Marxist theory, introducing the dialectical relationship between different types of happiness and pain. Among them, the happiness obtained from using internet platform is quite formative. Brooks believes that using Facebook is first of all an entertainment activity, a play. But in this process, a series of work done by users has become digital labor to produce surplus value for platform. Trade is largely commodified and has become one of the forms of producing surplus value. Trade labor is irregular, free, and flexible, permanent, highly free in form, able to provide immediate happiness and attract users to create more value data. But Brooks believes that play labor is essentially unfree because it creates wealth and profits controlled by others, and users are invisibly bound to social media. Our users' time is in a stage of being exploited. Brooks introduced a case, the Hamilton Post case, which is mainly about how to wield the so-called exploitation of users by the platform. In general, the platform believes that commercialization of Hamilton Post led to the exploitation of bloggers' labor. However, because the law doesn't discriminate the process of users using internet platforms as labor professions, the court didn't regard the relevant behaviors of the post platform as violating labor laws. And the judge believed that there was a voluntary contractual relationship between bloggers and platforms. Brooks, however, believed that although it is legal from a legal perspective, the phenomenon of exploitation still exists. Enterprise social media contrasts with the exploitation of labor. Users create data commodities containing personal data and usage data. These commodities are sold to advertisers who provide users with targeted advertisements. The price of users' labor power is zero. Capital maximizes profit by keeping the price of labor power as low as possible to promote its value. Therefore, Brooks believes that the law of value has not lost its power. The result of technological development and productive forces is that the value of commodities tends to decrease historically. The contradiction of value relates to the disconnection of value, profit, and price, thus bringing about a capitalist crisis. As Finally mentioned, it is feasible to replace capitalism existing system based on public ownership, in which creativity, social relations, free time, and play are the sources of value itself. Such a society is called a communist society, which is the negation of capitalism. And next, I would like to talk about some of my personal thoughts. First, a point that still puzzles me is whether it is reasonable to by users' activities of creating information on platforms as labor. Marx mentioned in Capital that labor is a specific proposal production activity that adapts special natural materials to special human needs and is a creator of specific use values. But if the purpose of users using the platform to produce data, even if data is objectively produced, the purpose is social interaction. Let others know their mission and use. The platform thus use the data produced by users to obtain new profit. But can this data be used directly? The platform must collect and filter information so that advertisers can deliver precise advertisements. Therefore, the real labor that creates value lies in the process of processing this information and in relevant technical personnel. I believe that the original data left by users on internet platforms should be processed, just like well-known information components. The platform must classify our information to accurately deliver videos so that data can become a real commodity. The production process of data commodities from the establishment of database to data cleaning and classification to data mining, all require a considerable amount of human labor time. Therefore, I think that the value of data commodities originates from the labor paid by data engineers. At the same time, the labor consumed in processing data is complex mentally. Data engineers create more value in the same amount of time than single. The varying labor of data engineers also transfer the old value of production materials, such as computer equipment and electricity consumed in the production process, to data commodities. Therefore, it's a main contradiction in this case, also the exploitation of digital technology workers. And second, I still have a confusion how exactly to understand happiness and play as pain and work. Where does the pain come from? Books repeatedly emphasize the portion of being isolated, which certainly has some rational platforms hold a large amount of physical information and monopolize the channels of virtual social interaction. In today's society of strangers, without these networks, people's communication needs are often greatly restricted. But does the portion come from the social platforms? What we know as traffic, hot searches, and trends, essentially to gain others' attention. And social platforms can greatly amplify this universal connection in space, intensity, and time. Psychologists such as the desire to gain others' attention and express one's own views are amplified by the platform. But for example, does the psychology of traffic anxiety originate from the push mechanism of social platforms or for people's own sociological and psychological needs? Finally, I want to say that we need to go to this various phenomena in dialectical entity. But Freud's theory has still brought me a lot of inspiration. So the above is my report tonight. Thank you.
先翻到那个最后那个人问题。
这个就是我在读这本书的时候很大的一个疑问，它也会把平台用户生产数据的过程也同样定义。我会根据我所已有的理论知识，比如说去分析用户的定义，包括生产对象、生产力等这些概念套进去，会发现真正创造价值的并不是，而是处理这个信息的那些工作人员，处理数据的那些工程师，这个框架整体来说是否成立。然后第二个点就是关于所谓的劳动，我觉得这个界限其实很分析，就是我们用户本身使用，尤其是福克斯他在里面提到一个像社交孤立的一种胁迫，所以你是不得不去使用，所以他会认为这是实际上掩盖了他工作的。
先解释第一个问题，这个数字劳动者或者说就是用户，他其实并没有说做一个很大的劳动，甚至他本身的这个行为可能甚至都不一定能够被称为劳动，对吧？那么怎么去理解这个问题？我出发之前看了2篇关于数字劳动的文章，一篇就是刚刚说的第一条理论，第二篇就是说的那个他不算的这个理论，就是程序员是不是被剥削了？我觉得这应该是肯定的，对吧？我们其实是可以这样讲，他获得的价值一定是小于他创造的价值。现在的或者是现在的问题就在于说，这些数字劳动者有没有被剥削？如果从我个人的观点来讲，如果用剥削这个词可能不是很合适，但是我们必须要想一个理论，或者说我们必须要有一套话语体系来解决这个问题。如果我们说他们没有去剥削的话，那么我们应该怎么样去解释他们的这一套商业模式或者说剩余价值的攫取模式？因为根据相关的数据，比如说今天因为我也在看这个东西，比方说脸书，它一年的收益可能一共有1000多亿美元。然后，那么脸书怎么赚钱？ 或者抖音怎么赚钱。我看那个 Facebook 的那个大概的数据啊，比方说它广告，它一年可以挣1100亿美元，但是它一年的总收入就是1200亿美元。这意味着什么？意味着 Facebook 或者说其实我们就是挪到抖音，其实原理应该差不多。就是说 Facebook 它一年的这个收入绝大部分，甚至有90%多的部分都是由这个广告来构成的。那么广告最后落下来是谁来？是不是对？就是庞大的用户来看。一方面，我们可以说用户创造了一些数据，然后在这个过程当中，既然 Facebook 这种数字平台通过向用户收售广告的方式赚取了大量的钱，那么他们跟用户之间到底是一种什么样的一个关系？是那种纯而又纯的关系吗？其实应该不完全构成这种关系，对不对？你们觉得，比方说 Facebook 或者说抖音，他们通过用户的这些观看视频的一个行为，然后攫取了这个大量的，或者说其实90%他们的收入都是从广告投过来的。那么我们怎么去解释这样一种商业模式或者是赚钱的一个框架模式？我们是不是应该有一套比较合理的体系来解释这个问题？福克斯给出的答案其实是剥削，所以我个人的观点就是说，我们可以暂时先用剥削，尽管它不是很准确，但是剥削这个词其实反映了数字平台和用户之间的这么一种不平等的一个关系，因为它绝大多数的数据以及它的这个广告的收入实际上全是由这个用户得过来的，但是其实用户在这个过程中并没有获得很多，当然它会有这个什么社交需求啊，这些肯定都是包括在里面，社交需求、娱乐项目，这个都是从这个使用价值上来讲。或者说我们是不是可以理解到，这个平台赚的绝大部分钱都是被偏袒拿走，而不是被用户拿走？你看还有没有什么衍生的问题？
就是这个用户在潜在的资源。
是的，其实是可以这样理解的，但是问题的关键就在于说，如果我们这样理解的话，那么就问一个问题：数字平台对用户是否构成这种关系？
既然这些东西原本就是用户创造，那应该由他们去分享。
对，对，但是对很好，但事实就是说，这些数字平台或者说背后的这些资本家，其实并没有把他们从这个用户身上拿到的这部分钱再返回给用户，就全部都直接拿走。这其实也能解释为什么说今天这个 Facebook、Instagram 这些平台能发展的这么大的一个原因。因为在数字领域里面，还有一个规律，就是说你这个数字平台的用户越多，你的商业价值是越大的，对吧？这个应该好理解，你的用户越多，你的这个数据越多，然后其他人过来投你。然后这个是第一个问题。
我个人倾向于怎么理解呢？广告还是说非流量也好，这种形式。所以你今天直接说数据和广告的关系，好像广告就是为了控制数据。
这边其实还问了一个问题：用户在创造数据的这个过程，
他有没有被剥削？我觉得如果是这样来理解，就从我的角度来理解，它是剥削。我这种剥削不是说强制的让你难以接受的，所以你必须给我工作8小时，我必须怎么样，就是要马克思明白的告诉你，这是拿走你的一部分。你看，在传统的时候，你劳动的时候，劳动力是归你，这个很清楚。但是今天呢，弱化数据，弱化这个剥削的这个。既然我们说脑力劳动是一种数据的这个时代，既然数据已经成为了，那你在娱乐时间、休息时间，只不过说我们今天的在数字平台，它实际上正在淡化劳动时间、生产时间和生产。就是马克思说，剩不下来只能生产领域中生产。那今天你产销一体了，生不下来。就是剩下这个我们的理解啊，创造出了比它自身价值更多的东西。在数字时代，就是生产跟生活界限淡化以后啊，可以说它随时调整进入了数字化，可能处于一个生产和消费它在不断的分离，在界限在弱化。那么这个意义上来解释生命价值的来源，因为这个属性是不一样的。你如果现在还用劳动价值来解释的话，是没有问题的。但问题在于你要注意到，纯物质的生产和数据的是一个不同。
他是怎么说的？就比方说，用户在这个就是平台，它本身起到了一个平台的一个作用。那么用户就是在这个过程中扮演生产数据的角色，然后平台的绝大部分收入是来自于用户的，所以说用户在这个过程中其实是不获得任何价值的。那么也就是说，其实我们可以换一种方式来理解，就是数字平台它侵占了用户创造的这种所有的一个生命价值，这是福克斯的一个观点。但另外也有的观点是他是反对，他说你用户创造的实验材料真正生产价值的是这个工程师程序员他在考虑这个东西， 真正创造价值的应该是这些人。从我的角度来解释，我认为他既对这个用户进行剥削，也对工程师他们进行剥削。其实对工程师进行剥削，这个应该是没有疑问的，对吧？
就是我还是再说最后一点，我们要注意数字这个方式，用马克思的话来解释，要思辨的看。今天和那个时候不太一样，你不能就卡着马克思那个生存价值那样来解释。我想说的，生存价值对它本质来理解，就是超出它本质。你说脑力劳动真的有那么高吗？
他之前不是讲说，除了传统的劳动之外，其实还都进入到这个现代社会中，大家都有好的知识管理技术等等，都可以把它们大的这个。我觉得是除了劳动之外，现在可能更偏重的就是这个技术管理。
因为在原则上来说，大家都学过这么一句马克思的说法，利润等于剩价值，因为它这个公式在价值的时候是 C 加 V 加 M， 然后在资本的里看来是成本加利润，所以成本就是购买力。那你说你真量化一下，不知道大家有没有改变？所以我由此引申出的就是说，今天的时代跟日不一样。
他另一方面又说，其实用户他也在遭受一种痛苦。他举一个例子，就是关于社交孤立的一种胁迫，所以我不太理解他的这个概念。
胁迫最主要不是垄断，非常简单，这已经在这个帝国主义论里面界定的垄断的基本概念是什么？真有狠人的话，我们可以把手机全部扔掉，会被删减之类的。
有一点极端嘛，就是他讲的这个胁迫，因为从体感上来讲，可能我们还没有这种比较严重的一个胁迫感，但是如果从理论上来讲，垄断其实本质上还是个垄断的问题。举几个比较现实的例子，然后最近京东搞的这个东西，因为之前美团相当于是在数字平台行业里面相当于家独大的，所以这个时候，如果你在放任美团这种情况，因为美团它重要在哪？它连接了线上线下，还有这生产者跟消费者，它相当于是一个很大的品牌，它把线上线下生产者消费者连接到一起，它涉及到了其实有数千万的这些生产厂家，还有我们的这个劳动成本，对吧？它的重要性体现在这儿。如果你作为一个数字平台，你没有产生那么大的价值，都是在这个骑手身上，然后另一方面你也在搞这个生产者，这样的话就形成了一个恶性循环，平台越吃越大，然后这个上下游的这个人就越吃越小，这个其实是垄断的很大的一个问题，它先把你吸引过来，然后到最后的时候，你只有它可以选择，那么这个时候它就要开始宰你，把你养肥了，然后再宰你。所以我感觉福克斯他可能其实也是这个意思，他的意思就是讲说，这些数字平台像 Facebook 啊这种，它现在其实已经有了一种一家独大的一个趋势。那么当它垄断了这个市场上越来越高的份额的时候，到那个时候，不是它离不开你，而是你离不开它，因为你所有的这个社交网络，你所有的社交圈，其实就跟微信是一个道理，你所有的社交圈其实都在那个上面，只不过说现在微信它还算是一个比较不错的平台。现在假设说微信突然这个开始出现了，就跟微信读书一样，我对微信读书这个事深恶痛绝。你们知道，就是他刚开始是那个不收费的嘛，然后后来今年拉人，然后拉人越拉越多，结果微信现在必须要这个花钱才能看，从这个纵向的这个维度来观察数字劳动发展的一条脉络线。然后，那么但我们同时也要注意一个横向的一个维度，比方说福克斯的数字劳动其实是数字劳动里面的，其实对数字劳动的一种解释。那么在学界其实还有很多其他东西，看福克斯的理论的话，其实会陷入一个误区。福克斯数字劳动理论的同时，我们也要去看其他的学界。然后第二个就是说，我们看数字劳动，不要只看数字劳动，就是我们要看到数字劳动它其实是更大的一个领域的一个范围，就是用那个整体性的角度上来讲。之前看了马研究的一个文章，就是他写说，他拿数字劳动做了一个框架，然后把它升起来了这个数字帝国主义，还有就是数字产业主义跟数字自由主义，认为数字劳动。
You say that I was the light of the sky, but dim doors tend to you fight. You used to laugh at me at night, but now it's on the back. The records recommend feelings inside. I'm thinking about if we try on that moment. and I'm the only one can tell the difference in you. So this is the last time that I share music with you. The songs are dollar bucks, the mystery never reply. I thought you'd lie. Oh, does it matter that I got this feeling and I tell you I'm waiting for you to come back? And if we've ever been so lucky, why we even become like this time? But all you say is just that you don't know what to do. And all you need is just to someone to hold you tight. I'm thinking about if we try on that moment that we fight. It is your choice that never changes. How could I say all of those words and left you behind? 'Cause you're the only one that really understands me. You're the only one that really, really understands me. And I'm the only one can tell the difference in you. But it makes no sense if